Alright, let's cruise on into the world of mystery.
It's always terrifying when people go missing altogether, but on a cruise ship, there's something about it because you're just on one confined space. It's like, how do you go missing?
You're surrounded by water, your odds aren't
good. Unfortunately, these mysteries may never be solved.
Let's get right into it.
Alright, we start with the disappearance of Hue Pham and Hue Tran, a couple who boarded a cruise ship called Destiny in 2005. Somewhere between Barbados and Aruba, they went missing and were never seen again. Hue Pham and Hue Tran had fled Vietnam at the end of the Vietnam War, survived 2 weeks adrift in the South China Sea, and eventually settled in the United States. They worked hard for 30 years, retired, and were happily living in Southern California. It was on May 12th that it was discovered the pair were missing. All that was left behind were their sandals, Hue Tran's purse, and a book she'd been reading. No traces of them have ever been found since then. Whatever happened, it was likely an accident though. There were no signs of foul play, and their son Michael Pham said there was no way they would have taken their own lives. They had no personal, financial, or serious health problems. They were enjoying a happy time in their lives when they vanished. So what happened? We may never know.
Next on our list today we have George Allen Smith IV, who vanished from the Brilliance of the Seas cruise line in July of 2005 while on a 2-week-long honeymoon vacation with his wife, Jennifer Smith. During their time aboard the ship, making its way along the coast from Greece to Turkey, George befriended a fellow passenger by the name of Josh Askin, who was 20 years old and traveling with his family. On the evening of July 5th, after spending the day on the Greek island of Mykonos, and 3 other passengers, Rusty Kaufman, Greg Rosenberg, and Zach Rosenberg, made their way down to the ship's onboard casino. George was never seen again. Jennifer, however, was discovered in one of the ship's hallways with no recollection of how she'd gotten there. When she returned to her cabin, she was distraught when George was nowhere to be found. Askin, Rusty, Kaufman, Greg, and Zach were all interviewed by police, and they all claimed that they had taken George back up to his room after a long night of partying, and then retired back to their own cabins to order room service. Only problem was, there was no record of any of them ordering room service, and there was BLOOD stains found on the sheets in George's room and all over the side of the ship. It was ultimately decided in 2015 that George disappeared after jumping or falling off the vessel over the railing in the pair's bedroom, a conclusion accepted by Jennifer, who settled with the cruise line in 2007 for $1.1 million. But George's parents do not believe that to be the case. Despite having reached their own settlement with the company back in 2011, they believe foul play could have been involved.
Merrian Carver went missing just 2 days into her cruise. In 2004, 40-year-old Merrian Carver boarded a Royal Caribbean cruise to Alaska. Oddly, she hadn't told her family about this, and even stranger, her family and the authorities were never informed about her disappearance, at least at first. She's never been found, but Merrian's father, Kendall Carver, has been searching for answers ever since. He discovered that while Merrian's daughter was staying with her ex-husband, Merrian randomly decided to take this cruise. She vanished on the second day, and despite a crew member noticing her absence, nobody did anything. Apparently, a steward reported her missing to her boss, who told her to just do her job. No report of her disappearance was made to authorities. The Carver family sued Royal Caribbean, who believed that Merrian just took her own life. And while that does seem to be the case here, I mean, this was totally mishandled, and it's easy to see why some people think something highly suspicious was going on.
Next up on our list today we have Rebecca Coriam, who in 2010 was working for Disney Cruise Line and on March 22nd of 2010 disappeared completely while working on the Disney Wonder. She was last seen on CCTV footage talking on the phone in the crew lounge. Rebecca was wearing men's clothing and was visibly distressed. The last thing she was seen doing was hanging up the phone and walking away. When she didn't show up for her shift the next morning, crew members started searching for Coriam, but they were ultimately unsuccessful. When staff were unable to locate her aboard the ship, the United States Coast Guard and the Mexican Navy were alerted and joined in the search. Unfortunately, they were also unsuccessful. It was determined that Rebecca must have either jumped or fallen from the deck or was somehow swept overboard, but nothing of the sort was captured on any of the ship's security cameras. To this day, her family are still searching for answers as to why or how she truly disappeared from the Disney Wonder cruise ship, especially especially considering the strange way she was acting just prior to her going missing.
Arron Hough was a graduate from the London Theatre School and got a gig performing on a Royal Caribbean cruise ship. But on Christmas Day of 2018, Hough mysteriously vanished 267 miles off the coast of Puerto Rico. The last sighting of Hough was on CCTV footage at around 4 a.m., where he was seen walking onto deck 5. When he didn't show up for work later that day, the crew launched a massive search to find him. The search covered 3,700 square miles over 2 days, but there was no sign of him. It seemed that Hough had gone overboard, but it was unclear whether he fell or jumped. At first, no one believed he could have taken his own life. He was always posting all these cheerful photos online, and it seemed like he was doing his dream job, performing in a stage play of Greece while sailing around on a cruise ship. But other aspects of his social media told a bit of a different story. A week before he vanished, he wrote, "Social media is the killer of people," criticizing the fake lives people lead online. And just before he disappeared on December 22nd, he wrote, "Beneath the water is beauty. Always look beneath the surface before you decide on things." So it was pretty clear what happened here based on those tweets, but it just goes to show what you see online is often not exactly telling the full story as to what's going on beneath the surface.
Next on our list today we have Fariba Amani, a mother of 2 from Canada, who on February 29th of 2012 was last seen on the Bahamas Celebration cruise ship, somewhere between the Bahamas and Florida, while enjoying a vacation with her boyfriend Ramiz Golshani. She was last seen by Ramiz himself, who claims to have seen her at the ship's gift shop before he headed up to the casino alone. When he returned to his cabin, Fariba was nowhere to be found, and so he went to bed. The next morning, when Fariba still hadn't returned to the cabin, Ramirez finally began searching for her aboard the ship. When he was unsuccessful, he alerted the crew of her disappearance. An 84-hour search then ensued, led by the Coast Guard, that spanned 25,900 square kilometers, but Fariba was never found. Police and the FBI also failed to locate Fariba or any evidence that would indicate where she might have gone or what might have happened to her. While the investigation never led to any answers, Fariba's parents strongly believe that Ramiz had something to do with the disappearance of their daughter.
Amy Lynn Bradley. I've always found this case very haunting. So on March 21st of 1998, Amy Lynn Bradley and her family took off on a cruise ship called Rhapsody of the Seas. But just 2 days into the cruise, Amy went missing. Her father, Ron, last saw her sitting on the deck. When he looked again, though, Amy was gone. As the day went on and she hadn't shown up again, the family started getting worried. They begged the ship's crew to delay docking at their next port, but the crew refused. The Bradley family never saw Amy again. Over the years, there had been some reported sightings of her around the Caribbean, or sightings that people think may be her, and each is more disturbing than the last. In 1998, tourists thought they saw her on a beach. In 1999, a US Navy sailor claimed he met her in a brothel where she introduced herself as Amy Lynn Bradley and begged for help, and then he didn't report it initially because he was scared he was going to get in trouble for being in a brothel. Then in 2005, Amy's family received a photo of a woman apparently named Jas lying very provocatively on a bed. The woman in the photo did look a lot like Amy, but in her mother's very own words, "It wasn't the Amy I know. The picture looks like a harsh and tormented Amy." To this day, her parents are convinced that she was kidnapped and trafficked.
Next on our list today we have Annette Mizener, who in December of 2004 embarked on a 9-day cruise accompanied by her parents and daughter on the Carnival Cruise Line's cruise ship Carnival Pride. She was last seen on December 4th at 9:15 while the ship was 30 miles off the coast of Ensenada, Mexico, and just 120 miles south of San Diego, California. She was reported missing by her family members, after which a search ensued aboard the ship. She was nowhere to be found. Her beaded purse was recovered, however, with beads missing, next to a 3-foot railing on one of the smoking decks, and this was at 11 p.m. While this was already odd, as her family maintained that she was strictly opposed to smoking and therefore would have avoided the area altogether, what's even stranger is the fact that the security camera in the area had been covered. When the captain of the ship was notified about the possibility of a man overboard situation, he waited 3 full hours before turning around and dropping rescue boats to search for Annette, which he only did after being ordered to by the Coast Guard. She was declared legally dead in July of 2005, and in November of the same year, her husband sued the cruise line for $15,000 in damages. While the cruise line maintains that her disappearance must have been some kind of freak accident, her family strongly believes foul play to have been involved in the loss of their loved one. And considering the fact that the captain refused to turn around only until he was ordered to, it seems like there's something fishy going on.
Next up, we have the case of 63-year-old John Halford, who vanished while aboard the Thompson Spirit cruise ship during an Egyptian voyage in April 2011. He went missing on the final day of the cruise, just before the ship was due to dock. Halford had plans to reunite with his wife in England the next day. He sent her a text message, had dinner, and later went for a couple drinks at a bar on the ship's upper deck. The last confirmed sighting of him was around 12:30 a.m. When Halford went missing, his belongings were found in his cabin. His bags were packed and his glasses, phone, and passport were left behind. Despite being seen drinking, witnesses reported he didn't appear intoxicated, and his wife said there were no signs indicating he was intending to take his own life. He'd even bought gifts for his family, so why bother with that if he had decided he was never going to see them again? So, did he accidentally fall overboard? Was there foul play involved? It's still a complete mystery.
And finally, to finish off our list today, we have Christopher Caldwell, who disappeared while on Carnival Cruise Line's Carnival Fascination in July of 2004. The night of his disappearance, Christopher had gone to dinner with his fiancée, Crystal, and some friends that they had met on the cruise. They drank quite a bit at dinner and then decided to go to one of the ship's nightclubs. Eventually, Crystal called it a night and headed back to the pair's cabin. Christopher, on the other hand, headed down to the ship's casino. Around 2:17 a.m., Christopher was recorded leaving the casino. The next morning, when Crystal woke up alone and unable to locate her fiancé, she notified the crew and a search was underway. During the search, a crew member admitted that a bartender had actually seen Christopher around 3:30 a.m. on the upper passenger's deck, and although Christopher had appeared to have been incredibly intoxicated and inebriated, the bartender did nothing to ensure Christopher got back safely to his room. The Coast Guard spent the next 36 hours looking for Christopher in the waters surrounding the ship, but eventually the search was called off and Christopher Caldwell was pronounced dead. And it really feels to me like he probably did fall overboard, but this 100% could have been avoided.
Yeah, I think I've told you before, but I find missing persons cases the most unsettling kind of everything that we do on this channel.
No, I second that. Missing people in planes are my two. Guys, if you have any others, if we missed any, let us know. If you'd like to see a part 2, let us know as well. Unfortunately, there are no shortages for this kind of thing.
All right, we'll catch you in the next video.